My fiancé's lawyer sent an outrageous prenup demanding I waive all rights. I politely refused to sign. She called off the wedding via text. My lawyer knew you weren't serious. I replied, interesting. Then I sued her for all non-refundable wedding deposits I'd paid. Her lawyer was stammeringly calling mine, offering to settle quickly. I, 35 male, am, or rather was, engaged to Chloe, 32F. We'd been together for 4 years, living together for 2 in my house, which I bought pre-Chloe, a detail that becomes relevant. The wedding was slated for 3 months from now, deposits paid, save the dates mailed, the usual drill. And yes, the lion's share of those deposits came from my accounts. We discussed finances generally, agreeing on a mix of separate and joint contributions for household expenses. Seemed normal. Then last Tuesday, an email lands, not from Chloe, from a Mr. Alistair Finch-esque. Subject, prenuptial agreement, Knight and Sterling. Knight's me, Sterling's her. My stomach tightened. Chloe had never mentioned a prenup. Not directly. We'd had those hazy, what if something happened conversations, but nothing about lawyers or formal agreements. I opened the PDF. It wasn't so much a prenup as a blueprint for my financial ruin. Key horrors included: my premarital assets, house, significant investment portfolio, remained mine. Standard. Her premarital assets, some savings, a car with a loan remained hers. Fine. Fine. The bombshell. Any assets accumulated during the marriage, irrespective of who earned or acquired them, would be deemed her separate property if we split. My future income, joint purchases, all hers. I was to waive any right to spousal support, no matter what, no matter how long we were married. A clause targeting my freelance coding income and small apps. Anything I developed during the marriage, even if based on existing concepts, would become hers. A vague lifestyle clause implying I'd have to maintain her current standard of living if she, for example, decided her marketing job was no longer fulfilling. It was breathtakingly one-sided. This didn't feel like the Chloe I knew, or perhaps it was a side I hadn't been allowed to see. I didn't call her. Finch's email clearly stated all communication on this agreement should be routed through him. Roger that, Alistair. First call was to Sarah Miller, my lawyer who handled my house purchase. I forwarded the PDF. Her tone over the phone shifted from professional curiosity to disbelief. Mark, this is exceptionally aggressive. Parts of it are so one-sided they'd likely be challenged successfully in court. It's drafted to the extreme. This is their opening salvo, and it's a cannonball. A lawyer can draft what a client insists on, but this shows a certain mindset from their side. Me, that's the vibe I got. So what's our move? You don't sign this as is, obviously. We can try to negotiate it into something resembling fairness, but be prepared for them to hold firm. This level of overreach is a massive red flag about more than just money. She was right. This wasn't a discussion. It felt like a demand from a stranger. Wednesday morning, Sarah emailed Mr. Finch. Polite, professional, but firm. Dear Mr. Finch, we represent Mark Knight and have reviewed the proposed prenuptial agreement. Mr. Knight will not be signing the document in its current form as it is substantially inequitable. We are prepared to discuss a fair and balanced agreement, but this initial proposal is not a viable starting point for such a discussion. Thursday afternoon, my phone pings. A text from Chloe, not a call. Chloe, my lawyer told me you refused to sign. He knew you weren't serious about us or our future. I can't believe you. The wedding's off. Just like that. 4 years, a wedding in the final countdown, kaput via text, because I wouldn't sign a document designed to strip me bare. The "he knew you weren't serious" bit was particularly galling. I stared at it. The hurt was real, a dull ache. Anger too, simmering. But overriding it was a cold wave of understanding. This document and her reaction laid bare something fundamental. My reply to her text, noted. Then I called Sarah. Chloe just called off the wedding, by text. A sigh, but no surprise in her voice. Okay, Mark, let's process this. What are your immediate thoughts, practically speaking? Me. The deposits. Venue, caterer, photographer, band. We're talking close to $28,000. All non-refundable now. All paid from my bank accounts. She unilaterally canceled because I wouldn't sign a predatory legal document drafted by her lawyer, effectively making the wedding impossible under her terms. I want that money back. Sarah. We can send a formal demand letter. She terminated the agreement to marry due to an unreasonable precondition. Will outline the basis for her liability for the forfeited deposits. Friday morning, Sarah sent another letter, this one to Chloe with a copy to Mr. Finch. Subject: demand for reimbursement of non-refundable wedding deposits, Knight Sterling wedding. It meticulously listed every deposit, payment date, amount, and included copies of contracts highlighting the non-refundable clauses. It stated that since she canceled the wedding due to her insistence on an unconscionable prenuptial agreement and my subsequent refusal to sign said document, she was liable for the ensuing financial losses. Payment of $28,000 requested within 20 business days. The weekend was a blur of packing Chloe's belongings from my house. Surprisingly little, mostly clothes and personal effects. No major furniture. She'd gotten rid of most of her things when she moved in. The following week was quiet. Too quiet. Then on Wednesday, nearly a week after our demand letter was delivered, Sarah got a call from Finch. No panic, just a tone of mild professional annoyance. Sarah, relaying to me later, Finch called, said our demand was opportunistic and that Chloe calling off the wedding was a natural emotional response to your client's unwillingness to secure her future. He offered $5,000 as a goodwill gesture without prejudice to make this unpleasantness go away. I told him that was unacceptable and we'd expect a serious offer reflecting the actual losses. So, the games begin. Update 1. 3 weeks later. Thanks for the messages and comments. It's validating to hear I'm not overreacting. So after Finch's dismissive $5,000 goodwill offer, which Sarah flatly rejected, Chloe apparently decided direct action was needed. Or rather, indirect action through her flying monkeys. Danielle, 30F, Chloe's sister and maid of honor, sent me a long, sanctimonious email. Mark, I am utterly disgusted by your behavior. Chloe is a wreck, and all because you wouldn't sign some standard paperwork. Alistair is one of the best family lawyers. He was just protecting Chloe. Now you're trying to bully her for money? You clearly got cold feet and are using this as an excuse. All her friends are horrified. Standard paperwork. Right? Sarah had already told me that while Finch was indeed a known, aggressive litigator in family law, this prenup was extreme even by those standards, likely heavily influenced by an insistent client or client's family, particularly her mother, Karen, I suspected. Chloe then texted me directly, ignoring the lawyer-to-lawyer protocol she, via Finch, had established. Mark, this is insane. Alistair told me you're actually threatening to sue? After you were the one who wouldn't commit? My parents are beside themselves. Mom says it proves you were never truly invested. I didn't reply. Forwarded to Sarah. Her laconic email response, duly noted. Standard tactics. Hold the line. The following week, Finch emailed Sarah. He upped the offer to $10,000. Still without admission of liability. Sarah countered, reiterating our demand for the full $28,000 and providing a spreadsheet with copies of all receipts and contract clauses again. She stated that if a reasonable settlement wasn't reached within 10 business days, we would be compelled to file suit in district court to recover the losses. The mention of district court, as opposed to small claims given the amount, was deliberate, signaling we were prepared for a more substantial legal fight with associated higher costs for them if they lost. Then Chloe herself showed up at my house last Saturday. I was doing some yard work. Chloe, Mark, we need to talk. She was trying for a softer, conciliatory tone, but the frustration was evident. Me, Chloe? Sarah is talking to Alistair. That's the channel you wanted. I kept weeding. No dramatic mower scenes. I was emotional. You embarrassed me by refusing the prenup. It was meant to protect our future. Me. It was designed to protect your future at the expense of mine, Chloe. There's a big difference. My parents said they might be willing to help with some of the wedding costs if we can just put this behind us and get back on track. She said it as if offering a monumental concession. Back on track? After you texted me, the wedding was off because I wouldn't agree to that prenup? Alistair was just being thorough. He was looking out for me. You know, I've talked about wanting to start my own business one day. Her artisanal, eco-friendly pet treat business idea, usually floated after a few glasses of wine, had never materialized beyond a Pinterest board. Me and my entire financial future was supposed to underwrite that indefinitely, with no safeguards for me? Chloe, I paid those deposits. You canceled the wedding because of an unreasonable demand. It's straightforward. So this is it? You're really going to sue me? My mother is devastated. She said you're not the man she thought you were. Honestly, Chloe, after that prenup, you're not the woman I thought you were either. She left in a huff. A few days later, Sarah got another email from Finch. He was now offering $18,000. Progress, but still not it. He complained about our inflexible stance and threatened to countersue for emotional distress if we proceeded to court, a threat Sarah identified as bluster, typical for his style when on weaker ground. The narrative Chloe was spinning to mutual friends was that I had a secretive financial life and refused to be transparent, hence the need for the protective prenup. The slander was getting creative. Sarah advised that Finch's increasing offers, despite the bluster, indicated a desire to avoid actual litigation. He was testing our resolve. We gave him our final deadline. Full amount, or we file. Update 2. 3 more weeks later. The deadline for the $28,000 passed. Finch's last offer was $22,000, still couched in no liability language. Sarah filed the suit in district court the next day. We had a strong case, breach of contract, the agreement to marry, by making it contingent on an unconscionable, last-minute demand. The process server delivered the summons to Chloe at her parents' house where she was staying a few days later. This, apparently, is when the carefully constructed wall of sterling family entitlement started to show serious cracks. It wasn't instantaneous, no panicked calls within hours. But about 3 days after Chloe was served, Sarah received a call from Mr. Finch. His tone, she reported, was markedly less confident than before. Finch, Miss Miller, my client is, of course, prepared to vigorously defend this suit. However, in the interest of avoiding protracted and costly litigation for all parties, we might be open to a more comprehensive settlement discussion. Mr. Finch, our position has been clear. Your client is liable for the $28,000 in non-refundable deposits. We are, as always, open to a settlement that reflects that reality. Over the next week, there was a flurry of emails and calls between Sarah and Finch. Finch tried to argue down the amount, citing shared responsibility for the wedding breakdown. Sarah held firm, pointing out that the prenup was the sole catalyst initiated by his client. Then, a development I only learned about later. Chloe's father, Bill, who had been largely silent, a passive, quiet man, I always thought, apparently put his foot down. A mutual acquaintance who is friendly with a Sterling family cousin eventually told me that Bill, upon seeing the actual court summons and likely hearing the potential costs of a losing battle in district court from a more realistic Finch, who would have had to explain the risks to his clients, told Karen, Chloe's mother, and Chloe that this had gone far enough. He wasn't a wealthy man, but he valued their family's standing and wasn't about to have it dragged through a messy public lawsuit they were likely to lose. He apparently told Finch to resolve this sensibly and without further delay. This behind-the-scenes pressure likely explains Finch's next call to Sarah. Finch, Miss Miller, my clients are now prepared to offer the full $28,000 to settle this matter, provided Mr. Knight agrees to a mutual non-disparagement clause and, of course, withdraws the lawsuit upon receipt of funds. We will also require reimbursement for our filing fees and associated service costs, Mr. Finch. Given the circumstances, that's $650. A figure covering actual court filing, process server, and some initial paralegal time for the preparation. Finch, let me confirm that with my client, but I believe we can make that work. He called back within a couple of hours. They agreed. Certified funds for $28,650 were to be delivered within 5 business days, along with the settlement agreement. The check arrived yesterday. The agreement, already signed by Chloe, included the non-disparagement clause. I went to Sarah's office this morning, signed my part. She's filing the withdrawal notice. It's done. The attempt to corner me with that prenup, the text message dismissal, the entitlement, it all crashed against a wall of calm, methodical legal pressure. No screaming matches, no dramatic confrontations from my end, just a clear, unwavering stance. Chloe's sister Danielle couldn't resist one last parting shot via email. I hope you feel good about yourself, Mark. Chloe is devastated, and this whole ordeal has been incredibly stressful for our family, all over some money. I archived it without a reply. Some people will never see past their own narrative. The real victory isn't just the money. It's the quiet confirmation that I stood my ground against a calculated attempt to undermine me. They thought I'd cave to emotional pressure or fear the legal fight. They misjudged. My house is still mine, my future earnings are secure, and the peace of knowing I dodged that bullet, that's the real settlement. Good riddance.